and welcome to another brand new episode here on where am I? Sunny Side Up Farms. Hey. Alright, it's thrown me a little bit. I always get this one wrong because I always record this on the back of 1950s, and so I'm always tempted to say 1950s. Yeah, so forgive me. I should cut that out, really, just do it again, but it's funny, you know. I like to, you know, hear and see when other people mess up, so I'm sure people love to hear and see me mess up. You know, no problem. You know, I'm only human. Anyway, how you all doing? Hope you're all well today. As you can see, we've got a brand new tractor on the farm, and we've got the seed drill. Yeah, so we're gonna, for now, persevere with the old seed drill, but the tractor very much needed. So because we were sort of kind of lacking a tractor with a tractor with sufficient power with which to pull this seed drill. But as I say, hopefully now we've got one. Right, we're going to go down this end. We need to fold those wheels away. They magically disappear. That's good. On the real one, because we had one on the first farm. Now, they had one on the first farm, but not when I worked there. So by the time I got there, the drill had gone, and they had a 4-meter Verdestat. So essentially, just so you know which one they had, because I do actually have a model of it. If I can see the seed drill, there it is. So they had this one. Now, the reason why I haven't purchased this one, so this is the one they had. The reason why I haven't bought that to go on the back of this tractor is because the markers for a 6-meter drill, and the drill itself is only 4 meters. So that's why I haven't done it, because obviously I need the markers to you know, to be able to know where I'm due next. And if you're having to sort of second guess all the time, you know, it's no fun. So that's the reason why that is. But yeah, as I say, we will crack straight on today. We're busy. And the other good thing about this tractor as well is GPS. It means I can finally keep my line straight, which is always good. Because I hate it when I drill wonky. But yeah, so I bought the tractor mainly because you know, whilst at the moment it may be a tad overkill for what we're doing, you know, within a year, 2 years on the farm, you know, we will be more than ready for a tractor of this type. So as I say, that's the reason why I've gone for it. And again, not unheard of. So the farm that this is loosely based off, which is the first farm that I worked on, which is the farm that my granddad and all of my sort of relatives worked on at some point in their lives, they did have this crawler, but they didn't have it as a mainstay. So they had it for, I thought they purchased it and bought it and it was going to be on the farm, you know, forever and a day. But no. So they borrowed it for a year. That would be in the 90s, so in the mid-90s. So the case that's in the other field, cultivating, that was their sort of main powerhouse tractor. So that was the tractor that did, you know, pretty much all of their real heavy work. And so when that one needed to go in, I believe, if memory serves, so John, who I work with on the farm now, I'm going to do something here that you wouldn't necessarily do in real life, but you can get away with it on farming sim. I'm going to use the we're just going to overlap a little bit, so it means the headland on this side is going to be a little bit narrower. But what it means is it means it will come right when we get to the middle of the field. So you know, you sort of forgo the accuracy on the headland, which doesn't really matter so much anyway, to make sure that the middle comes right. But but yeah, so the big case tractor had a major issue, a major fault that was going to cost them quite a lot of money to repair and, you know, so to get it up and working again. And they actually had for the summer this John Deere crawler, and they really liked it, so much so that they didn't buy it, which, you know, never made sense to me. But and it wasn't a case of they couldn't afford it; they could easily afford it, but they just decided not to afford it in a way. Yeah, I got told that they just decided they wouldn't buy it, even though I think it would have sort of really brought their farm on. Although, I mean, and I have said, and I've said it to the boss man himself. So it's not like I'm saying anything here that he hasn't heard, or I'm being unkind behind his back. I've said, the way that you manage the farm, you hold it back. And he sort of looked at me and he said, interesting. He said, now that you've started that, you need to finish it. And I said, well, we're 1,000, I think it was 1,100 acres farm. And I said, we just don't make the best of it. And I said, there are lots of farms out there that would love to, progress and grow and, sort of get bigger, more work, but, more importantly, continue to do the work right, more profit, more money, not only for yourselves but for the farm as well. And I said, you hold it back. We're one of the very few farms in the area that's selling land. That as I say, that's selling land. So I said we should be buying land. We should be moving forward, pushing. And he said, I remember his words. He goes, "So you think you could do a better job than me?" I said, "It's not about that." I said, because I said, at the end of the day, I said, you're a lot brighter than me. I said, let's be honest about it. I said, we ain't gonna beat about no bushes here. I said, your intelligence, I said, for sort of managing monies and stuff like that, I said, way better than me. That's not where I am. My sort of forte comes into the fact of, I said, recognizing opportunities when they arise, and then sort of taking advantage of those opportunities. Obviously tractor driving, I said, I'd like to think that I'm quite a good tractor driver. And he said, and I'll never forget it, and I was sort of really proud that he'd said it. And he said, "Oh, you're by far and away the best tractor driver we've had on this farm." He said, in terms of actual all round where you can drive straight, there's not a job really that we give you to do that you can't do. He said, he said, "John is very good, he's but he doesn't quite have the same," he said, he can't drive it straight for toffee, whereas you can. And we find that very sort of impressive, that you are able to drive a tractor in a perfectly straight line across the field. So he said, there's no doubt about that. But that that was just my thoughts, and I did go on. I can't remember everything I said. It was quite a few years ago now. And funnily enough, yesterday I was so now then again, there's an elephant in the room. In terms of the house that I live in, and I was sat at the tea table the other day, and we was eating our evening meal, and my mum looked at me and she went, "I hope you're not going to be offended." I said, "With what?" She said, "You ain't half fat now." And I kind of sort of sat there and I went, oh, and she went, well, should I just say, normally, she said, you've always had a nice figure, she said, like, you've always, you know, been nice and slim, had a nice figure, because, you're fat now. So I said, yeah, I said, about 2 or 3 years ago, I said, something happened that, I said, I'm glad did happen, but I wish hadn't happened. And she was like, what's that? I said, I said, as you know, I said to her, I said, I've been, for the last few years. So when I broke up with my sort of long-term girlfriend, who I'd been with for about 15 years or so. I think one of the reasons why she left me, and I had to hold my hands up, this was my fault, was I couldn't go out. I'd get really nervous. I'd feel sick. I'd need the toilet a lot. I just couldn't go out anywhere. And I think in the end, it just got too much for her, and she just like couldn't handle it. And I say, someone obviously better came along, and I've sort of found out that she'd been sort of with her for about seeing her sort of every day. Times when she was telling me she was at work, she clearly wasn't, and as I say, she eventually ended up, leaving me for her, and which is fair enough, and as I say, I think one of the main reasons for doing that was because I just couldn't go out. Every time we sort of wanted to go somewhere, like I say, I'd feel sick. I'd get really panicky. I'd need the toilet a lot. Yeah, all right. Own up time. I'd cry a lot as well. It was a real fear of leaving the house, and she'd put up with this for sort of 15 years or so. I mean, some days it was sort of better than other days, and so some days I could go out. Some days, she, we could go not far away, but we could go sort of relatively local, and I think she just got sort of tired of it and sort of fed up and what have you, and so she decided to go, and I sort of made the decision that in my although she'd never said it, I think it was fairly obvious to a blind man, and I sort of made the decision, right, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna find myself someone who can help me get over this, and I'm going to conquer it once and for all, so that I can do whatever, and I can sort of whatever. And because to go with that, I had a phobia of sort of diarrhea and sickness, and I also had a food phobia, so I only ate when I had to, not because I wanted to. And I was very fussy and particular about what I did eat and what I didn't eat, because obviously I've got this sort of phobia of sort of being poorly, which sort of manifested into like a phobia of sort of food poisoning and that sort of stuff. And because and basically it locked me into sort of the way I was, and it was not a great place to be in, and I started seeing this bloke. Well, to be fair, I've never met him, but I started on the phone. We had a phone conversation. Met him through a nurse in the hospital. So I had to go into hospital with my heart, and this nurse came in one night. She said, I was on my way home, so I said, oh yeah. She goes, and she said, you obviously have got no family coming, so I thought I'd come and sit with you for a bit. And I was like, oh, thank you very much, that's very kind of you. And she said, do you mind? And I said, no, not at all. Anyway, we got talking and we got to know each other, and I think I was there for about a week, and she, every night after work, she would come in and sit with me for a couple of hours and just chat, and just like kind of, it was nice. And she gave me the phone number to this guy, and so I rang him, and sort of kind of in the end decided nothing to lose, and gave him a call, and he started to help me. And of course, one of the things he managed to get me to get me so I could go out. I mean, now I sort of pretty much go anywhere. there's still a confidence issue. There's no doubt about that. But okay, you know, I can sort of like this Sunday. I'm hoping to go to Hensford. Oh, I can't see the line. Where's the line? Where's the line? Where's the line? It's just so this Sunday I'm hoping to go racing to Hensford, which for me is a heck of a trip by myself. But you know, I'm sort of thinking, yeah, I can do this, you know. And of course, the other thing that he did was he got me over my food phobia, and my fear of not being very well, you know. And now, yeah, I still don't like it, and I'm sure no one likes it, but it doesn't control my life like it did do. And he's really sort of, you know, making massive improvements to my life, you know. And as I say, I sort of don't call him nowhere near as much now as what I used to, because I don't have any need to. I, you know, sort of managing sort of fairly well, and as I say, you know, the big the big thing is that, you know, because he's got me over my food phobia, now I just bloody eat all the time. It's like, you know, I'm almost making up for the sort of, you know, 15-20 years that, you know, I've been unable. So it all started when I was 16. So there was an incident at home with my little brother, who was not very well, and it just literally, you know, from that day started from there. And yeah, you know, it wasn't very nice, and I just couldn't go out anymore. I didn't want to eat anything. You know, because I didn't want to be ill like he was, and he got me all over that. And because now he's got me over it, I'm gaining weight quicker than Vanessa Feltz on a night out with the girls, you know. And it's not good. And yeah, so I'm sitting eating my tea, you know, very much enjoying my meat and 4-veg, which we have pretty much every night. You know, I love my vegetables, you know, and as I say, normally it's sort of chicken and veg, or, you know, beef or pork or lamb, or, you know, whatever and veg. Sometimes it's you know, pucker pie and veg, you know, but veg nearly every night. And absolutely love it. Love my veg. Love, you know, sort of. I quite like my fruit. I'm not such a big lover of fruit, but you know, I do eat it. Eat bananas, eat apples and stuff like that. You know, but yeah, so as I say, we sat at the tea table the other night, and you know, sort of, you know, Mum comes out with that line, and I'm thinking, you know, and yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, for a second say, oh, I was offended, because I wasn't. You can't really offend me. And so I thought, well, I better start, you know, sort of trying to do some exercise, which is hard, because obviously if I'm having a bad heart day, then, you know, exercise is sort of difficult, you know. So I started walking out. Anyway, I was walking out yesterday, and the boss man, as I always call him, the boss man, he was doing a field walk, and he was on the end of the field, and he was sort of stood there, and he was on his phone, and I was sort of just walking up, and I said, afternoon, boss man. And he went, he goes, just the man I wanted to see. So I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, what's the matter? He said, one of my kids has texted me. He says, and I don't know how to open it. Can you open it for me? He said, normally I get the wife to do that. He said, but she's gone away for a few days. He said, can you open it for me? He said, because I can't open it. And he said, I keep ringing them, but he said they're not answering. So I said, yeah. I said, okay. So anyway, I sort of, I mean, I'm not very good with phones anyway, but you know, I was fairly confident I could manage to open a text message, which we did. And we were sort of talking to him and what have you, and you know, we were sort of talking about the past and that, and I said to him, I said, look, I'm going to start doing sort of like vlog videos and stuff. I said, and I'm going to start doing sort of like farming videos. I said, and one of the things I'd really like to do is to, you know, sort of, if you'd let me, is to sort of come on the farm, sort of show where I used to work. I said, not really the farm yard as such. I said, because, you know, I said, you probably don't want that, and I understand that. I said, but like the fields and like the machinery in the fields and what have you. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. He said, like, you know, it would be really nice. He said, like, you know, if you'd do that, like that would be really great. So I was like, cool. And I said the one thing I'd really like to show, I said, because I don't know about Sunnyside Up Farms, but on 1950s Farm, I've been talking a lot recently about the crawler and my time and experiences with my granddad. I said, I said I'd really like to be able to show the crawler, and he said, "Ooh, I don't know about that." So I said to him, I said, well, fair enough. He said, why? He said, I don't know about that. He said, because he said, you're not going to be happy with me. I said, you've sold it, ain't you? And he said, yeah. I said, now then, boss man. I said, what did I say to you all those years ago? He said, you said if ever I wanted to sell it, come and see you and you would buy it off me. I said, exactly. I said, so what happened? He said, I forgot. I said, you didn't forget, did you? He said, no. He said, I don't know. He said, I just, he said, he said, times move on, James, times move on. I said, I spent most of my bloody childhood on that crawler. He said, yeah, he said, to be fair, that is true. I said, the amount of Augusts, Septembers and Octobers I spent sat on that crawler with my granddad. I said, just going. I said, my mum used to pack me lunch every day that I would go to work with my granddad on there. He said, oh, yeah, I know. I said, I'm gutted. He said, it's still in the yard at the minute. He said, but he said, it's been sold. So I said to him, I said, okay. I said, so what you're technically saying is that whilst in principle you've agreed with a price with someone, that price of course could be bettered. And he was like, he goes, well, he said, I'm a man of my word. But he said, yeah, he said, it could be bettered. He said, and he said, I'll tell you the other thing that's quite tempting with it. I said, what's that? He said, it will be kept local. He said, because it is going quite a long way away. So I was like, okay. So I said, well, I said, at the end of the day, I said, I'm not happy. But so I saw him. So I sort of, as and when, I'm having a good enough day, I'm doing a little bit of exercise, trying to lose a bit of pork. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. But anyway, we're going to crack on with this drilling. So we've got quite a bit to do today, drilling wise. So directly in front of us, the other side of that building, is the big case, and that's cultivating ahead of the drill. You remember that we cultivated this field ourselves in the last episode, and we will we'll get this drilled, and we'll just sort of keep going along. But one field I am going to set aside for sugar beet. So whilst we might not get pigs straight away, we've got quite a bit of development to do down there, and one of the developments that we've got to do obviously is clear that land. I want my piggery in before I start doing the pigs. The piggery's already there. I want the butchery in before, or the abattoir in before I start doing the pigs, because I want to go straight from day one doing our own pigs. And so, as I say, I mean, we can, in theory, we can sort of get the pigs now in the first barn, because what we can do is get them growing. And now I've been to the local construction company, local plant hire, and we've got a digger coming in, excavator coming in. It's coming in a little bit sort of later down the line, so it's sort of ends of October, November time it's coming in, and I'm hoping that he's given us a good deal on the hire, because they don't tend to be hired out quite so much in the winter months, and so we've sort of come to a bit of an arrangement between us, and we've agreed to give him pork as well. We're already bargaining and trading with the pigs, it's all good stuff. And but yeah, so we've got an excavator coming in, but it is going to be a self-drive excavator. for the price that I've paid. He said, like, you know, I simply can't afford to send a man down as well, you know, on that. So he said, like, you are going to have to do it yourself. So I'm going to, at some point when we get our sort of farm work done, I'm going to be going down there, and he's going to be showing me how to use it, and we're going to have a little practice and a play with it, and then we're going to get it onto the pig farm, and then we're going to start clearing the land and getting ready to get that butchery installed, or the abattoir installed, and then he's going to do it. So his construction firm are going to be the ones that build it, and we're, you know, hopefully we're going to have it all nice down there. Obviously we need, you know, a vast amount of money to do everything that I want to do down there, and we're going to have to take baby steps. You know, we don't have a great deal of money. This tractor costs quite a lot of money, but you know, I wanted GPS. I wanted it on a slightly more modern-ish tractor, and you know, to have tracks is always better to work on the fields than you know, sort of tractor tyres. The big case, that's on massive flotation tyres. It's as good as tracks, so you'll find really that we won't be using David Browns and stuff for you know, sort of cultivating and field work. Nowhere near as much now. You know, whilst they don't particularly weigh that heavy, you know, their tyres are not the best for the land, and as well they can't pull the equipment that this tractor and that case can pull. Eventually that case will need to probably be replaced, and then we might end up buying a second one of these, but that's a long way down the future. Like I say, the concentration now is I want to get that, you know, I want to get the piggery all sorted and up and running, and you know, getting it so that we're in a much better place. But yeah, as I say, I honestly, I'm really pumped for this save. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing, and when stuff starts to happen, it is going to be slow because it is on hard, so we're not getting the money, you know, we're not getting the amount of money that we could get for the crops when we sell them and stuff like that. You know, it is on hard. You know, this is going to be a very long-term save, and you know, hopefully everyone's going to you know, sort of enjoy it as much as what I think I'm, you know, going to be enjoying recording this series and playing this series. So this week you got a little bit of a Brucey bonus, because there's going to be 2 episodes this week. So today's episode and then the normal one tomorrow, which will be Friday's episode. Just because I really want to push on with this. You know, 1950s farm is great, and you know, it sort of gets, you know, good views and everything, and as everyone knows, you know, I've been struggling of late for views, and just been struggling. The channel has been struggling just in general for views and subscribers and stuff like that. You know, and then like the other day, you know, within the space of sort of 10 minutes, I get 2 new subscribers, and suddenly you get a burst of enthusiasm again, and you think, right, come on, we need to drive forward. You know, we need to keep going. You know, we need to, you know, sort of keep pushing with it. You know, it will work. It's just going to take time, and so that's what we're doing. But I will also admit at this point, I have enjoyed a couple of days off, and I saw a message on YouTube from Simulation for the Nation, the guy that does that channel. Now, I've not had nothing personally to do with the guy, but he has sort of said that, you know, the demands of YouTube have gotten to the point where, you know, he's stepping back and sort of giving up, and you know, not going to do it for for quite a while. You know, he thinks he's going to have a few years out, and you know, people, I think that's the one thing that people that watch these videos don't quite get, is the amount of time, especially when you're, you know, a channel like myself. You know, Daggerwin's another one, and you know, there are others that are recording every day, you know, that are uploading a video every day. You know, you know, and as I say, you know, don't get me wrong, I've, you know, chosen this, but I think it is important to just sometimes have a day or two off, like I have had. You know, at the moment, I'm not really recording at weekends, and I'm not really, you know, sort of doing, you know, anything to do with computers, playing my games or anything at the weekend. I'm, you know, just sort of getting out, you know, doing things. And this is another reason why I'm getting fat, because you just sit on my backside all day doing this, you know. And whilst I don't necessarily eat while I'm doing it, you know, I'm not a massive crisp lover. I'm not really a massive sweet and chocolate lover, so I don't even do that. But it's just the fact that, you know, I'm not sort of doing no exercise. And I had a checkup at the at St Bart's a few weeks ago, and I was talking to my specialist and my surgeon. I see them every time I go, and the surgeon, Vivian, she pulls no punches. Me and her are just straight up with each other. And she said, like, well, you know, what are you doing with your life? I told her, and she said, okay. So she goes, so you're hoping to live till you're about 48 then, are you? About 48, 50. So I said, well, no. I said, obviously hoping to live into my 60s and 70s. You know, that's my goal. Has always been my goal. So she goes, well, she goes, I'm not going to beat about the bush, James. You need to get off your ass and do something. So I was like, I said, why do you say that? And she said, because from last year, she said, like, your heart has deteriorated again. And she said it is deteriorating at quite a rapid rate. She said, and quite frankly, she said, you're doing nothing about it. And she said, you know, and if you're not going to do nothing about it, why the hell am I going to waste my time? And I was like, you know, whoa. You know. You could be slightly more diplomatic about the whole thing. And she was like, nope. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, so as I say, we are going to be doing, you know, there are going to be breaks, you know, not you know, every week, you know, we're going to keep it up, and you know, we're going to sort of, you know, we're full steam ahead, but there has to be a little bit of balance in life. I think that's kind of what she was saying, you know. She did also say that if the YouTube channel did get to the point where I was starting to earn, you know, sort of 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 a year, that she would consider running away with me. So I looked at her and I said, why the hell do you say that? I said, you know, surely your husband's very successful. And she went, oh, I'm not married. And I said, oh. I said, well, surely your boyfriend's married. She said, oh, I haven't got a boyfriend. So I said, no. I said, how come? I said, like, because I said, I ain't being funny. I said, but you're drop dead gorgeous. I said, like, you know, how come? And she was like, she goes, so I gets in the way of the career. And I was like, I said, fair enough. I said, that's what I think. And she was like, you haven't got a career, James. You do that for fun. All right. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to switch over to a little bit of time lapse. We've got this field done. We're going to go down to the other field now. Hopefully that case should be at least halfway, if not a little bit more, through that field. I mean, it'd be even better if by the time I get there, he's very nearly finished. The other thing we need to do as well is, at some point, we're going to need to walk down to the yard and fetch the teleporter and the seed trailer, because we're going to soon need to refill this with seed. But we'll try and get as much of this done today as we can. Then there'll be another video tomorrow where we'll finish off the drilling. So there'll be 2 fields today probably, and then 2 fields again tomorrow. But I will also, as well, in tomorrow's episode, don't hold me to this, but I will try, if there's enough time, to also get on with a little bit of excavating as well. Just because, as I say, we do really need to crack on with that. And why is that not rubbing out the mark line? Unless it's just where I've not cultivated, I don't know. But anyway, that's this done, so we can turn that off. Now we might be able to just sneak down the road and get to the field without having to fold all of this up. We might make it. So in real life, on the first farm, No, it was the second farm. On the second farm, as I've said before, I was relief combine driver. So I was a sort of floater in terms of the combine, right? So we had 3 combines. We had 2 full-time combine drivers, and then a third floating combine that if it become wet or we got a little bit behind or one broke down or whatever, we had a third combine to be able to go. And so I'm on the combine, right, and we're in that field there, right, and I'm going to the field that I'm now going to. Well, it was roads like this, right? It was just wide enough for my header, right? The header was hanging over each side, so I'd covered the whole road and, you know, a foot or so, you know, on the outside of each side of the road. And I was thinking, oh, I've only got a nip down now. I thought it's absolutely ridiculous to take it all off, get it all onto the trailer, get it, you know, I thought I've only got to get around now. Well, I got like literally I got probably about halfway. And what happened? Yeah, a car came. I couldn't go backwards because there was a car behind me. And we just sat looking at each other, and he was like, "You're gonna have to back up, mate." And I got out, and I said, "You what?" He said, "You're gonna have to back up." I said, I said, "Have a word with yourself, will you?" I said, "Look at the size of me." I said, "Compared to your little car," I said, "You can back that up down there." He's like, "I'm not backing up." He said, "You shouldn't be on the road with that on." He said, "At the end of the day, you're breaking the law." He said, "And if I wanted to, I could call the police." So he said, "You're gonna be backing up." It was a bit of a stalemate for a little while, but eventually he did reverse. But I mean, to be fair, he had a point. You know, he did have a point. You know, so. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to switch over to some time lapse, and I will see you all in a little bit. Bye for now.
Our hearts beat to the city streets. We began to feel the fire. We rise like tall buildings as the chemicals, they take us higher. The night's young and it's just begun as she puts her hand in mine. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be two hearts running wild. So loud as the hours pass, we're gonna do it all again. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be
Okay, so I'm back, and that's got that field drilled. Obviously, you saw me drill the first one, but that's, as I say, that one's got that one done. And yeah, it's all right. That done a nice, neat job, and that's just what I wanted. And that's why we did pay the 15,000 extra on that tractor for the GPS, because, as I say, I wanted a nice, neat job with tram lines. The very first field that I drilled all those years ago, I had some very interesting wibbly wobbly tram lines, and it was because of that field that I drilled. It was of spring beans, and I drilled it, and as I say, so it looked all right when the crop wasn't through, but as soon as the crop came through, you know, it revealed all my secrets. And I was, I had the mick taken out of me by, many a man in the village. It's a bit of a sort of a farming snob village in a way, because if things don't look good from the road, it's a bit like what you see with Clarkson and Caleb always going, oh, but people from the road will see it, and sort of people think that's just a line from the TV, but that in a lot of areas is genuinely what does happen. Is, and as I say, the first field that I ploughed, the first field that I drilled, worked good. While I was sort of, as I used to say to them, it's all right, I'm just getting me eye in. Once my eye's in, I'll be there. And, and sort of laugh along with them, really. But yeah, the first field of beans that I drilled. It it was a time when Giants' own GPS system had come into real life. The only sort of bad thing was I wasn't following a line. I was literally driving what I thought was a perfectly straight line, but no, it wasn't. So, yes, but anyway, it was all good fun, and it all turned out well in the end. But as I say, it was because of that field that I then I literally started going in at weekends and, sort of going to help people, other than the farm that I worked on, to try and, get so that I could practice to drive in a straight line, because it annoyed me so much. But we did get there in the end. I don't know whether I could do it now again, because I haven't driven a tractor now for a long time, but sort of properly, but yeah, anyway, as I say, I am going to leave this episode here as I choke myself. Yeah, I say I'm going to leave this episode here. What I might do is in the next episode, as I say, we'll drill the next two fields. Hopefully the lad cultivating will have that done, and then as I say, we'll get those two fields drilled. But I won't do such a long intro, so I'll just literally say hello everybody, welcome to today's episode. I won't make it 37 minutes long like this one was, and then we'll be able to get way more recording done. I am a little bit naughty sometimes because I'd sort of just, I don't know, I like chatting. I just like chatting. I think, to be fair, it's possibly what does sort of hold my channel back a little bit. But I just like chatting. I just like sort of chatting, about anything really. But as I say, I'm beginning to wonder if it's that sort of is holding my channel back a little bit. Maybe I should do a lot less chatting and a lot more time lapsing. But it was in the early days when I was doing sort of big chunks of time lapse that I was getting sort of messages from people and comments in the comment section of Jesus, does there have to be so much time lapse in it? And it was like, well, the one thing that has sort of surprised me in doing YouTube is how hard it is to talk about farming sim. So, Yeah, it is nearly impossible to be able to keep the whole chatter about the actual game itself, you know, and it's really, it has surprised me, but like I say, it's really hard to do. You sort of kind of run out of things to say. It's like, well, today we're going to drill these fields, we're going to cultivate this, and you kind of think, well, I've said everything I need to say about that, really. So that's why I tend to sort of then go into sort of a bit of general chit chat. I mean, some people like it because I do get messages from people that say, "Oh, I can sit and listen to you talking all day." Like, it's fantastic, and I love it. And I haven't had no one say they don't like it. So I suppose that's one thing to kind of sort of take from all of that is, as I say, no one sort of said, actually, I wish you'd stop doing that because I don't care and I don't like you talking. So I guess there is that to take from it. I'm almost tempted to do 2 breeds around the outside actually on the headlands, just because these are not very wide rolls. And if they're not very wide rolls, then to do 2 breeds round is kind of acceptable. But if I had, sort of 12-meter rolls, then that wouldn't be acceptable because you should be able to turn on 12 meters. But you wouldn't do this in real life. As I say, with small rolls like this, you perhaps would do it because there just isn't the room to turn around. But yeah, you wouldn't want someone doing it with bigger rolls because obviously compaction. So you just literally want them to go around the outside and then just keep turning on what they've already rolled. But yeah, anyway, as I say, I'm going to get this done off camera, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll be drilling that other field, and then we've then got excavating to do. So I thank everyone for watching. If you haven't done already, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Also, as well, share the video wherever you feel like you want to share it. Spread the word. I was absolutely gobsmacked yesterday. I was playing FS22, and that wasn't the bit that I was gobsmacked about. And happily playing away. Tend to listen quite a bit to simulator vibes on the radio that's in the game. So I tend to listen to that quite a bit. When I'm sort of playing the game and what have you. And I was happily baling a field of wheat straw, and suddenly over simulator vibes, a message comes up of a big shout out to Mr. Jimmy D. Absolutely love your content. Everyone should go and watch on YouTube. And honestly, it made my day. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And no, I did not ring in myself. Although I kind of cursed myself for not having the idea. But yeah, no, so it was really lovely. So massive thank you. And as I say, I hope everyone does enjoy my videos. And let me know if you don't. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and we'll see if we can sort it out and see if we can find sort of some good common ground where we can make enjoyable content. But anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. Really enjoyed having your company. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye for now.